Quote, the approach to combat and everyday life should be the same. End quote. Musashi. Miyamoto Musashi lived in 16th-17th century Japan. He was a Japanese swordsman, philosopher, artist, writer, and a Ronin. A Ronin is a samurai fighter who wanders alone and is without a master. Musashi lived as a Ronin and he mastered the art of two swords, one longer and one shorter. He was a perfect and invincible duelist. He attended in 61 duels and he was not defeated in one. In the current standards of the UFC championships, he was considered as an undisputed and undefeated champion in all of Japan. Before dying in 1645, Musashi wrote his 21 principles in the secluded cave he used to live, called Dokkodo, the way of walking alone. The principles was the embodiment of Musashi's philosophy as a Ronin and as a warrior who favored honor over anything else and lived an absolute focused and determined life with less doubt and hesitation. Musashi despised hesitation in his famous duel against Kojiro. When he defeated his opponent, Musashi said, Kojiro, you showed hesitation that isn't allowed in the way of the sword. End quote. In this episode, I share the 21 principles of the great legendary swordsman and warrior of all time, and particularly Japan, Miyamoto Musashi, the Dokkodo. Principle number one, accept everything just the way it is. It basically talks the nature we cannot swim against a stream of the water, then we should accept the nature as it is. And also according to Stoic philosophy, it is something beyond our control. Things beyond our control, we should accept it as it is. 2. Do not seek pleasure for its own sake. Musashi's life was basically revolved around meaning and purpose in life as opposed to pleasure, which is very permanent and which goes by. And pleasure, according to Musashi, was like scratching the itch. The more you scratch the itch, the more there is more tendency to continue scratching the itch up until it goes astray. 3. Do not under any circumstances depend on a partial feeling. As mentioned before, he was a determined fighter and duelist and Ronin, and he despised hesitation and doubt. Therefore, he always embraced confidence instead of hesitation. He always championed for having the faith to oneself with a very high self-esteem. 4. Think lightly of yourself and deeply of the world. Humility and staying humble was key to Musashi's way of war. Therefore, he preached for having always a humble and a low profile about yourself, having this understanding that in this very mighty world, you're a very small and a very insignificant part of it. 5. Be detached from desire your whole life long. Desire is the seek of pleasure, and the more you seek pleasure, the more it tends to destroy you, the more it tends to subvert and undermine you, your mental clarity, and also the more you crave, the more you engage yourself in self indulgences and all sorts of gratifications, the less you're a clear man. Do not regret what you have done. The best thing that we would learn from a failure is to learn the lesson, but to not regret it, to not be repentful of that, and to not live and dwell on the laments of the past because it is not helping. Instead of it helps, it destroys, it is subversive, and it eats you from within, your brain, your energy, and your all force. Therefore, we shall not regret about our past deeds and just look forward. 7. Never be jealous. It doesn't help. One way or another in the life, we are created not equal. We have our everything different and we are distinct creatures. And the time and the circumstances under we have lived in different places, in different societies, have given us various and different opportunities. Therefore, it's all about the situations, circumstances that we lived, and they are all beyond our control. Thinking about them and just complaining about them or staying envious about the conditions of others, about how they got better opportunities than us, is not helping anymore. It is rather very subversive and draining our energy and our force. 8. Never let yourself be saddened by a separation. Miyamoto Musashi was a Ronin who wandered all across Japan in his life, and he was all doing duels and fighting, and he was a warrior, a swordsman. Therefore, he didn't care whether if he was separated from his family members, his loved ones. That was key to his success. Therefore, in our current life too, we cannot stay all the time with our loved ones, with our family, or at some point, in the worst case scenario, a death of our family members or those who have relations with could happen. One way or another, the decay and death is some natural part, an inherent part of our life, and everyone and everything is subject to decay and death one day. Therefore, why we should complain about it? And we must always learn and internalize to ourselves that we should stay detached from things that are subject to decay and death and mortality one day or another. 9. Resentment and complaint are appropriate neither for oneself nor others. You should, if you complained, if you have grievances about the past, about others, about your circumstances that you live, it never ever helps. Instead, it is all the time consuming your energy on that. Instead of that, you should focus on something that you can do, on something that you really have. Therefore, complaint and resentment all the time should be avoided. What I have found in my personal life too, that resentment and complaints is just squandering the time, and it is a squandering of your energy and everything. If you remain positive at hard times and think and focus on what you can do and what is possible, is more helpful and can lead your life toward a more brighter future than just staying still, idle, and just complaining. 10. Do not let yourself be guided by the feeling of lust or love. What I found that lust or love, they are more destructive. They're just in our current life. Of course, Miyamoto Musashi lived 500 years before us. And in our current life, we are overwhelmed by all sort of digital world. And our world is way more distractive than Musashi's. Therefore, one must be very focused, and one must, even according to the samurais, should wear blinders in order that they should not get distracted by a lot of distractive tools that we have in our current world and in our current age. Both lust and love, they could prove detrimental to one's development. If you want better, faster as a personal development, then you must avoid lust and love. And in a Ronin's life like Musashi, lust and love had no place. 11. In all things have no preferences. As it's well said, what's good today might be bad tomorrow. It's of course very good that we should have no preferences over the things that we face in our life, because it takes a lot of time. We could have preferences over something very wise, but in our current destructive and a life of almost abandon that we got abandoned staff and tools, this consumerist and market life, when you go to the city, when still you want to do some shopping, you have, from one thing, you have the variety of them, the colors, the standards, the scale, the size, everything. And you will almost all the time, you will be confused how to choose. Therefore, in our time, it is always wise to apply this principle of Musashi. In all things have no preferences. When you need something, just go there and pick it up. And don't waste your time, because you will have a very meaningless life. For example, I'm going to give you an example. There is a super 5-star hotel called the Claridge's Hotel in London. And that is only for the super rich, which costs £6,500 in one night, and only the super rich and the bourgeois can afford to live their nights there. And I found that there are a lot of people who are working there as butlers, as housekeepers. They have a housekeeping head and director, and the all overwhelming job of that housekeeping director was to look how is the chair, how are the furniture and this stuff. What I found that they have quite a very meaningless job, because they're just serving the super rich. Instead of that, if those people's energy would be served to be a teacher in a village for the poor children, that would be way meaningful. And it's also about this, that we have a lot of preferences over very trifle issues that has no matter and that does not bring any significant and meaningful change in the lives of the human species, one that can change those very basic situation and conditions of humans, particularly alleviating a part of the society from poverty to a better situation. 12. Be indifferent to where you live. In current life, when you travel from one city to another or one country to another, and it is important that you keep a very constant profile. And it's also told by Confucius that, and remember, no matter where you go, there you are in good. It means that there are a lot of my relatives who went to these foreign countries, and they are the same, those people. But a lot of them have also changed for negative. Therefore, that's called that wherever you go, you must retain your philosophy, your ideology, particularly the Dokkodo, the way of the walking alone or the way of the warrior. Regardless of where do you live, you must retain and respect and apply these 21 principles to your life. 13. Do not pursue the taste of good food. This is the most inspiring one for me and challenging. For example, you have a guest. Your guest is coming to your home and you're just serving some various kinds of food for him. And that guest is sitting very humble and very calm. You bring anything, he doesn't give any comment whether that food was tasty, not tasty, delicious, salty, spicy, so on and so forth. At the end of the day, you would have one evaluation from that guest, and that would be wow, what a spectacular person, what a character, what a humility and humbleness, because he had no comment about the taste and the quality of the food that was offered to him. He was a genuine person. Chances are very high that a person who doesn't give comment about the food, he would be very much revered and everyone would have a very positive comment and evaluation about him because he's totally selfless. Not only selfless, he's not cocky and he's not the person who takes very high of himself, and he's very humble. And he knows that it doesn't make sense that we should just waste our time and energy over talking about the taste of food. Rather, this kind of people or men of honor. They say that it's better that we should not speak about it. We don't know that food was cooked by a man or a woman, and at the same time, most probably by a woman who was cooking this under a very discriminative situation, but that woman really was respectful to you and tried to cook that. So, what is the point of complaining about that? What's the point of commenting whether that was salty, tasty, or not tasty? So, be a real Ronin, be a warrior. Just respect to them and respect to what they offer to you, even if it is a piece of onion or a glass of water. 14. Do not hold on to possessions you no longer need. As the whale said, the things you own ends up owning you. 15. Do not act following customary beliefs. That's well said. You should not be dictated by what other people believe or what other people are saying or what other cultures or traditions or even your own traditions are dictating on you. Instead of that, as Miyamoto Musashi all the time, he was in fight with his father. And the reason was that his father was traditionalist, arguably, and Miyamoto Musashi always applied his own brain and his own knowledge, and he relied on his own self instead of those preoccupied or pre-conditioned traditions and rituals and those customs. 16. Do not collect weapons or practice with weapons beyond what is useful. It also says that according to Stoic philosophy, you should focus on only what matters. Because as I talked about the Claridge Hotel in five-star hotel in London, all the energy of the people of the staff are just squandered in doing things that are not meaningful. What does it make changes in the world that you just wash, I don't know, the foot of the rich man? It doesn't change. Already they got everything. Instead of that, if you go and serve for the poor and for those who are needy, that's way more meaningful. And this also the thing that we got a lot of kinds of tools and skills in the world. A lot of people are busy in doing works and jobs that are not meaningful. It is also like the analogy of the weapons that was used in Musashi's time. Therefore, we must only focus on what matters. We must only engage ourselves in activities and jobs that are meaningful and that are inspiring change and bringing positive change. 17. Do not fear death. Quote, why I should fear death if I am? Then death is not. If death is, I am not. Epicurus, the Greek philosopher. Of course, according to Musashi, if you want to be a legendary warrior, you must not fear death. And you should have a very resolute acceptance of fate, and it's also one of the Stoic principles. Memento mori, which stands for that we must love and accept that we are mortal and we will die one day. 18. Do not seek to possess either if deed is. Do not seek to possess either goods or fiefs for your older age. Yeah, you must not overwhelm yourself with possessions because, as mentioned before, the things you own ends up owning you. 19. Respect Buddha and the gods without counting on their help. As I mentioned, that Musashi was a person who relied on himself, not on customary beliefs, and he hated these superstitious beliefs. He used his own mind and knowledge and experience and expertise to go the path of the warrior, the path of the lunar, and the path of the Ronin. 20. You may abandon your body, but you must preserve your honor. The Ronin, and particularly Musashi, was the man of honor. He has never ever compromised his code of honor. And traditionally, there was a kind of ritual called seppuku that they used the warrior or the samurai that who lost most of their duels and battles. They in public they suicided themselves, called seppuku, because the life for a warrior who is not having a good profile or who is not abiding by his honor is a disgrace and contempt, and therefore it's rather, instead of surrendering, it's better to suicide oneself. According to them, it's what the samurai fighters held this kind of belief. 21. Never stray from the way. And it means that you should never ever deviate and deflect yourself from the path of the warrior, from the path of the Ronin. That's the honor, that's the respect, that's the determination, that's the focus, that is the full belief to oneself, the highest standards of confidence and self-esteem, and the one who is always focused on his own skills, and he's always mastering the arts of being a good man.